Today, we're going to have a little bit of a walkthrough of a document about next steps, and I'll officially begin. So this is an OpenChain Germany meeting. We've had a quiet period, and I want to discuss how we can have maybe regular meetings or similar. We had a tremendous meeting face to face in April, OpenChain and Friends in Stuttgart. And we had 3 days of discussions. We had a pretty packed house and just wonderful contributions. What I want to do is basically check, can we take some of that energy into a regular meeting schedule in Germany, perhaps some smaller face-to-face meetings over time? Or are we better suited to keep, an occasional schedule with big events? And just for reference, we do have the plan to continue OpenChain and Friends in Stuttgart with the help of companies like Bosch and contributions from wonderful teams like Mercedes, but also the support of the local government and local trade. We got a lot of help from Fossland, which is promoting essentially how small and medium enterprises around Stuttgart can benefit from open source. Anyway, before we start, as usual, the antitrust policy notice, every Linux Foundation meeting shows this full antitrust policy on the Linux Foundation website. If you're from a member company, you can ask questions of our counsel, Andrew Updegrove. And today's agenda, super simple. One document, and I'll just put the link into the chat. The document is a thinking document about possible next steps. So I sat down and said, okay, what is it that maybe we can talk about? I had sent an email prior to this call, basically outlining that we're gathered to discuss three things. To identify what's happening in the country around open source process management, to talk about what we as OpenChain can usefully contribute to increase value in the area for local businesses, projects, and the government. Certainly in Stuttgart, working with Fossland, we found that a lot of small to medium enterprises were quite new to open source process management. New in the sense that they had been doing it, but they weren't aware that communities with very detailed reference material were available. And finally, any areas of concern that might need global community assistance. And that's shorthand for, do you need some of the multinationals to drop in and say hi? Do you need Ericsson or Nokia? Would it be useful to have Qualcomm turn up and give some information specifically for the German work group? Now, our challenge is a lack of momentum in our meeting schedule and discussions. And I think there's a couple of contributing factors. One is a lack of time on everyone's part, and another is that there's a lot going on, so it's difficult to focus energy. Now, we were super lucky to have tremendous support, and I must call out Marcel and the team at PwC for hosting us multiple times in I think the 2022, 2023, 2024 period. And we were very fortunate to have some of you come to the meetings. We had, for instance, I think really interesting thoughts being shared from Fraunhofer and other entities. Now, thinking about everything we've done and thinking about how to focus us, I was reminded of a comment from Sony. And Sony recently said the most important thing for them is risk management on legal and regulation. This is something that's very tangible and it's a priority for their teams. And I wanted to suggest, based on your feedback, that we do that in Germany to say, okay, there's so much going on We could talk about so much aspects of process management, but maybe we focus on legal and regulatory. And I've provisionally identified just 3 examples of risk that are right here for companies. The CRA, it's going to be December 10th, 2026. That's it. That's when we have to be ready. And some interesting conversation came up. I was speaking with Jimmy from Ericsson, and he said beyond meeting the CRA, there were all kinds of product portfolio questions. Like, what if a product, a legacy product, cannot easily be made compliant with CRA? Then you have essentially 1.5 years to work out the sunsetting of the product and replacement if possible. So the CRA implications go so far beyond checking boxes into very practical product portfolio questions. The product liability directive may be of interest. It's come up quite a few times around Brussels open source discussions. The AI Act, the reason I put that there was that everyone seems to be saying that everything is AI. And OpenChain has very recently moved into having a draft guide to AI compliance in the supply chain. We had a lot of challenges with companies facing their suppliers, including AI in whatever. And the companies are asking, what have you just included? What's my liability here? How do I manage this? And the AI Act is probably step one in the global situation for dealing with this. It may be of interest. Right. I want to pause here and see if you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas based on what I've flagged. Everyone's like, I don't want to be first. And by the way, there's no right answer. If we say that at this point in time, a regular meeting schedule or a focus on regulatory and legal risk is not appropriate, it's not going to work, then that's a valid stance. And the question would be, what else could we do to help people? But I think it is important to discuss this, and particularly because OpenChain is very active in working on this. We've led the development of ISO standards for open source process management. And now with things like AI and just launching this public comment period 2 days ago on a new guide. This is a guide, not a standard at this point in time. We're still at the forefront of doing these things. Marcel, your hand is up.
Yeah, so what I was thinking about, so why, yeah, we have the situation is potentially that with the Bitkom open source group, there's already something there, right? So I think um, to discuss here in this round would be the question, so what would be then the USP for an open chain German working group, or how would that fit together? Because obviously there is already some infrastructure, regular meetings in autumn. So to put something next to it, I don't know if, yeah, what would be the additional benefit. So I tend to um, say if that is possible for everyone, because I don't know if Bitkom open source group is limited to Bitkom members, right? So if they could be more flexible, then I think could work that we say, okay, we just merge that together and be just two flavors of the same thing, but using, well, the activity, the dynamics that's already there.
A very good point. I think Marcel and then Jan had their hands up.
Yeah, I want to mention the same thing in what Marcel just said. More or less. I mean, currently we have the
I'm
Marcel,
sorry.
I hardly
There's a,
can't hear you.
yeah, there's something wrong with the audio. Thanks, Jan.
better.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Not working?
Yes.
Wrong microphone, sorry. So I wanted to mention more or less the same what Marcel said. So currently in Germany, we already have quite some meetings. I mean, Shane, you mentioned one of these lighthouse events like in Stuttgart, for example. Then we have the FOSS Backstage in Berlin in February. Then some people go to the Brussels event in Brussels in January around FOSDEM. Then we have the regular Bitkom open source meetings, 3 physical meetings per year, and then the big event in Erfurt. And then there's the Linux Foundation open source conference in Europe, in Vienna, and this year in Amsterdam. So I think many people already go to these big events. Yeah? When it comes to Bitkom, to the working group meetings, actually only people can come who where the company is a Bitkom member, and that's a paid membership to be a Bitkom member. To the Erfurt event, the FOSS, the BFOSS meeting, everyone is invited. For me, the difference between these currently existing meetings and OpenChain is that OpenChain very precisely focuses on the topics of compliance, security, and these standards. And I think these OpenChain meetings are good to work on the standards and to push those forward. And this would be the focus perhaps of the OpenChain meeting. But yeah, it's difficult to set up another routine, I guess. And the question is, okay, how can we also integrate into the existing meetings, or how can we extend them, or do an additional session the day after or before, perhaps, but somehow link it to the existing meetings.
That's a really good point. And we're going to go to Jan and then Thomas, but I just wanted to make a quick note because Marcel is deeply involved with things like the Erfurt event, I'm guessing all of Bitkom. I know that Frank moved on from Bitkom recently.
Yes.
I'm not sure who took over, so maybe if we go down the route of let's liaise with Bitkom, let's do that. Maybe you could help intro us to the new leadership.
Yes, sure. I mean, yeah, currently I'm in the lead of the Bitkom working group open source, and also the other participants, they're happy to facilitate this, I assume.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll come back to this. Jan, over to you, and then it's to Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. I can agree with the others. We have the calendar full with meetings, and there's a lot of initiatives. I might bring your attention also to an initiative by the Open Source Business Alliance, which another it's kind of another group that is associated by it's more smaller companies than the focus of Bitkom, and they have started an initiative called the Regulatory Monitor, which is looking up all these different regulations and trying to give short summaries and try to align them in the sense of what is required to do. And this has a public repository that is, I need to find the URL, it's not very simple. But I can post it in here in the chat, and this is an open repository where everybody can commit and contribute so that the information about regulation can be collected. And we are in cooperation with BSI as well as with the Bitkom groups to get this to a common repository so that this will be a joint effort, let's say, to really give people a hand in understanding what is behind these regulations, which are relevant to me. Some are industry specific, some are cross-industry. There's a lot of things going on. I think what probably would be an idea is to to point out this initiative so that more people can participate. And maybe this group could also participate in case there's more interest in doing something on that.
And that's a good point. That's a great point.
Let me just find the URL. I will post it to the chat.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm just making a notice. Liaise with. Oops, misspelled that. Thomas, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Well, I haven't been aware of neither the Bitkom open source group nor the Open Source Business Alliance, so I don't have that scheduling problem. I will look them up later, but at least for me, it isn't something that stands counter to any OpenChain initiative. The thing is, I understand your focus towards CRA and product liability and so on. That's not my personal focus. In my company, I'm interested in it. I'm tangentially, well, I'm kind of involved in that, but not leading anything in our company on those matters. My interests are mostly actually open source license compliance and stuff around it. So I think something that OpenChain could focus even more on is actually showing benefits of OpenChain standardization. I know that companies like Bosch and so on have introduced it, and it's basically no discussion anymore. But for some smaller and mid-level companies, OpenChain is still not very much known. And when you come to management and say, oh, there's this nice standard and it's not actually too difficult to achieve, you still probably have problems convincing people that it's worthwhile. And I think not everyone has already seen what OpenChain is and what it does. So it may even go more towards, evangelism, advertising, whatever.
Good point, Thomas. Leonard.
Yes, thank you. I think this was a good statement from Thomas. I think it's quite important to have maybe the Japanese colleagues as to look at them with the standard, which is SPDX Lite or something like that. What I mean is also to look at the supply chain, because if you look at the products, you have a lot of heterogeneous companies who are delivering to this product. And I think my focus is also open source license compliance, and to enable these supply chains just practically would be a goal from my point of view. And I think this was also the motivation of the Japanese group to enable with the standard SPDX Lite and the surrounded documents to also to make the level lower for maybe smaller companies to get on open source compliance too, because then they can also provide their things to this to a supply chain. That's my opinion. Thank you.
That's a good point. And actually, I just got an email from Hitachi asking to talk with Siemens. So I'll be introducing Nakamura-san to Oliver over at Siemens. So the Japanese companies are wandering over. They want to talk about how German companies are doing OSPO. So Hitachi specifically wanted to talk about Siemens. So, it seems natural that maybe we can look at how the Japanese companies, in a very practical way, did stuff like creating SPDX Lite, which was totally based around the fact that the Japanese supply chain is mostly small to medium enterprises, and they couldn't possibly do complex automation. They send SBOMs in Excel spreadsheets. So the Japanese were working on that. Marcel.
Yeah, as you're now currently listing, and I read the title, it identified priorities for the German market. I think it was mentioned several times, but I think makes sense to have it explicitly here as a bullet point to enable our supply chains, especially the small and medium business. Also, what Marcel said was what Jan said, and I think here with Fossland, but this is automotive and Baden-Württemberg specific, but OSPA I think would be a good partnership. And the question for me would be, what is in it for them then also, right? So, and yeah, so that we also have some arguments why OpenChain German or DACH, because I like the idea of having this DACH group, and might make sense and bring people together on this specific topic, yeah, so that we do not work on the same fields and reinventing the wheels, but having a good forum for exchange beyond those separate Bitkom, Fossland, automotive, OSPA, etc., but making that kind of bracket around those topics, but with the clear, because I think that's also what Thomas said for the Netherlands, and I think this is also for other European countries same. So with CRA, etc., plus license compliance, I think especially the small and medium business, they might need a lot of support in the next months and years for that, and that should be in all our interest here in Germany that this works.
Mm-hmm. A very good point. I've put down the small and medium-sized businesses to deal with compliance. Do you think that's enough, or should we rephrase it?
Well, I think that's generic enough.
Jan, over to you.
As the small and mid-sized business are exactly our scope. We see that, especially with all this regulation, I do think that we should probably come a little bit away from this only compliance thing. Yeah, I think that the security specification is also pretty relevant, and this is mainly the driver. And what I could imagine is that from our standpoint, we should probably align that the requirements that we have put in the security specification, for example, may have to be a little bit leveraged to cope with what the CRA is requesting. Yeah, because currently I see that there is some of the reporting requirements in the CRA are going a little bit further than what we have thought is okay for or enough for the security assurance. And when we talk about product-specific things like capabilities and risk management and so on, yeah, it's a little bit wider. Yeah? Maybe we could review the ISO here so that the ISO is more conform with these regulatory requirements. Yeah. Marcel, probably you have an answer on that.
No, not an answer per se, but also a thought. I mean, here in terms of the regulation, I think DORA, we should also mention the Digital Operational Resilience Act for the financial institute sector, yeah, for banking sector. And they also have specific requirements for open source and third-party risk management. Yeah. And I mean, I've been a long time part of this group and of OpenChain and so on. And in the beginning, we focused, as Jan also mentioned, yeah, more on compliance. And in the last 2-3 years, particularly with CRA and DORA and all this stuff, I think there was a shift to security and more focus on security. So what we talk with clients about is very often now we start with the security and then we say, okay, once we have all the security stuff done for open source and we have full and complete and nice SBOM and notice files, etc., then the compliance we should also take care of, yeah, since we already have all the stuff to do compliance. So I would even ask the question for the coming years if, I mean, probably it's not so easily possible, but if there should be a combination of 5213 89748 to one standard. But that's a different question topic. But just saying that, I mean, very often we discuss both things together. And when you do one standard, then it makes totally sense to also do the other standard. Yeah? And yeah. And Jan, what you said, I think we should review 8974 in terms of if it already meets all the requirements from this current regulation. But so far, I have the impression that our standard is very good and flexible, and it does set the good basis at least to fulfill the.
Absolute, no doubt. Yeah, I fully agree that it's a very good base. But yeah, if you talk about the reporting, the reference to CSAF, if you talk about capability management and risk management, I would say that CRA is wider, and also NIS2 might request more on the risk management side than what we have put in this 18974.
Thomas, over to you.
Yes, I actually like that the compliance and the security standards are separate standards. They might be able to reference each other, but the thing is, for license compliance, I think we basically only have the OpenChain standard, while when it comes to security, let's say at work, I don't need to come anybody with the OpenChain security standard, because everybody is looking at IEC 62443. So that's basically, oh, why are you coming with this exotic standard when we already have this industry standard? And my position is basically when I have this separate open source license compliance or process management standard, I can get it in much easier than convincing everybody to use yet another security standard.
Actually, just as a sort of a side note, this is almost exactly why we actually have two standards, which is just a side note to Marcel. Some of the large industrial companies were concerned about smaller companies maybe facing a challenge in doing security and license compliance at the same time. So they felt we would benefit from having standards that are so complementary. If you use one, the other one is easy. But having it separate so they can start with one and then include the other. So that's the rationale. That's why there's two. Just so you know.
Shane, absolutely clear. I mean, I know the history, but the point is, and it's totally fine. It was just a general thought. But some issues that one
Of
could
course.
be facing is that when you do a certification and an official third-party certification, you need to contract for each and every certification itself. So
Yeah.
as per the ISO standards for doing certifications, one certification needs to be contractually on its own. So therefore, when we do two certifications, we need to go into two contracts and two contract negotiations and so on, and they cannot combine it in one offer. And that sometimes customer asks us, okay, we want to do both. Can you just send us one offer and one contract, which is as per official certification regulation, not so easy. But it was just a thought, not
And
topic.
no, it's a very good point. And what I'd like to do is include this point in future discussions. So Chris from Lockheed Martin, Chris Wood, who runs specification, is just about to announce another cycle of review of ISO 18974 and ISO 5230. So we've just completed one cycle. It's been voted as passed by the steering committee, but he's opening another cycle, and we should discuss this in the cycle. You know, it's likely that there'll be an incremental update next year, but it's possible that if the community said, look, we need to combine them, or look, we need to expand 18974 a lot, that we can do this ahead of CRA and so on. So the discussion will open. and it'll be a global one. Now, I'm aware we're hitting time, so I wanted to quickly summarize and see if it's okay. Enabling small and medium-sized businesses and large to deal with compliance. So what is OpenChain's specific value proposition? Supply chain risk management, so license compliance, security assurance, what Japan is doing. SBOM quality seems to be growing because that's becoming a regulation issue. Just so you know, OpenChain's SBOM group is about to make a reference guide to show people how to play Lego with SPDX and Cyclone, so that you can be like, I need to meet the American NIST requirements, CRA, plus the new Japanese thing that will come in soon. Or I don't need all of it, or I need more. And what pieces you'd need to ask your supplier. So you can say to your supplier, these fields, SPDX, these fields, Cyclone. That's what I want. So risk management, regulation, we've got a bunch, and a question, do we cover enough? And therefore, suggested next steps, maybe the actual next steps are simply liaise with our friends, Bitkom, Open Source Business Alliance, and maybe OSADL, and say to them, look, we have this knowledge, we have these activities, we know there's a lot of meetings. Maybe we should liaise with you and make sure that our knowledge flows into your meetings. So instead of having lots more meetings, maybe we can liaise and see if we can include our stuff in their meetings. What do you think? Is that an okay way forward?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Fine with me, yeah.
Okay. In that case, that's our suggested next step. Perfect. Liaison time. Okay. I'll come back to you. I've got OSADL. Marcel is obviously Bitkom. Jan, you're Open Source Business Alliance, so I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
So I'll come to all of you and we'll open up a discussion with your organizations and basically see how do we value add to them. And that's it. We're going to take over the world again.
Yeah. I only had no
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you
Thanks.
all.
Have a nice
I
day.
appreciate your time.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a nice day.